Mike Benson's view of authority became distorted at a young age.
Growing up, my dad was passive-aggressive. He'd let it all stay bottled up and then he'd explode. So I think a lot of it was he took his frustrations out on me.
As he got older, Mike grew angry, just like his father. Drugs and alcohol kept a lid on his emotions.
It was at the age of 16, a friend of mine and I, we were high on cocaine and drinking vodka all day long, and we decided that we were going to rob a bank right in broad daylight. We went into the bank and held the tellers up and took the money, and we ran, got away.
Hours later, the FBI and state police caught up with Mike. He was sentenced as an adult and given 5 years in the Michigan Department of Corrections.
When the door shut and that key turned, that big key, it was like one of the lowest points in my life. Finally, after 5 years, though, I did get a parole, and it was a happy day. I had all these good intentions, I had all these good desires, I was going to get a good job, I went to college when I was in there, and I did everything that I could to set myself up for success once I was released from prison.
However, his criminal record kept him from getting the jobs he wanted. Mike's old patterns returned.
And time after time being rejected, it brought back those feelings, and I heard the words that my father had spoke to me as a young man. You're worthless, and you're a dummy, and you're never going to amount to anything. And so I went right back into a life of drugs, substance abuse, which was my attempt to just make the pain go away. And then I got reacquainted with the same person that we did the original bank robbery in 1989. And him and I started to hang out together. And of course, we started taking crime to a whole nother level.
A car theft put Mike and his partner on the run from the police. They began to rob their way through Michigan, Kentucky, and Indiana. In October 1996, a gas station robbery put the police hot on Mike's trail.
And I tell people this, it's the America's Dumbest Criminal story. This particular gas station was directly across the street from the Boone County Jail and Sheriff's Department, and 2 blocks down from the state police headquarters.
After a dramatic high-speed chase through Indiana, Mike eluded the police. His partner abandoned him, but Mike made it all the way to Florida. He was busy setting up a new life under a false identity when a Florida cop brought his plans to a screeching halt.
An officer there was doing a routine stop. I'd been stopped several times before and talked my way out of it, but something wasn't sitting right with him, and so he said, I think we're going to run you in and check your prints and see who you really are. I knew when I got to Sarasota, I knew I was never going to see freedom again.
Mike was arrested for 3 auto theft charges, kidnapping, parole violation, and armed robbery. Mike first went to Indiana to face his charges.
And I went into cell block A in cell 12. I could look out the window and literally see the Shell gas station that I'd robbed. And then in the middle of all that, the darkest time of my life, I started to remember some words that some guy spoke to me back when I was doing my first 5 years. He'd say, well, Mike, you know that Jesus died for your sins, and well, Mike, you know that God's got a plan for your life, and that he can redeem any area of your life. He can do this because of what he did in Jesus. And I started to yell out to him and say, God, if you're so good, if you've got this great plan for my life, then how come my life is so messed up? And it was the first time I ever heard God's voice. And it was right in here. And he just said, call on me, son. Call on me. And I got on my hands and knees in the jail, and I reached out, and I said, God, I've ruined this life, and there's nothing I can do about it. So I'm just giving it to you. You take it, it's yours. Do whatever you want. But when I got off the floor, nothing changed on the outside. Still facing all that time in prison. Still looking at never seeing freedom or my family again. But this time, something had changed on the inside. That something was different. And for the first time in my life, I really knew what life was. And I really knew what it meant to be free.
He got involved in prison worship services and Bible studies. When Mike went to court, judges saw the tangible changes in his life. Court case after court case was decided in Mike's favor. Instead of doing life in prison like he expected, he only served 6 years for his crimes in both Michigan and Indiana.
Finally, October 31st, 2002, right on Halloween, I was released from prison. And I'll never forget when I crossed the threshold of that prison, I heard the voice of the Lord say, I will redeem the years that the enemy and the locusts have taken out of your life.
Shortly after prison, Mike met and soon married Stephanie, and he has 2 children. Today, he also heads the Conqueror's International Strength Team, a group of evangelists who travel the world using strength demonstrations to help present the gospel.
I understand that I don't know everything about life, but he does. And so I submit myself to his authority, and I see it as a good thing now. It's just knowing that it's his grace, it's his love, it's all about him. That's the real freedom. That's the freedom that there is in Jesus Christ.